All right, so some major breaking news, both domestically and internationally. I believe we're in this next phase of exposure and justice, and we are seeing it from a financial perspective. So today I want to talk a little bit about what's going on in the Middle East with Iran, some updates there, and also some big breaking news here domestically in the US. So let's get into it and talk about some of the details, starting with this first post. President Trump talked about the Iran being closed. So it continues to, and a lot of news reports are coming out with, oh, like Iran is closed it, Trump is closed it, and just this back and forth for the last week. It's been a little bit confusing. But here, let's read what he says in a recent post a couple days ago. He said, Iran doesn't want the Strait of Hormuz closed. They want it open so they can make $500 million a day, which is therefore what they are losing if it is closed. They only say they want it closed because I have it totally blocked, closed. So they merely want to save face. People approached me 4 days ago saying, sir, Iran wants to open up the strait immediately. But if we do that, there can never be a deal with Iran unless we blow up the rest of their country, their leaders included. And then a few hours later, he says, Iran is collapsing financially. They want the Strait of Hormuz opened immediately, starving for cash, losing $500 million a day, military and police complaining that they are not getting paid. SOS. So this is big news. So Trump and the whole military, everybody, they're coming out both on the Iranian side and in Trump's side saying that they are starving for cash, they're losing money. And this is true with this estimate because, again, Iran is using that port and that whole area, the strait, as passage to sell their goods, namely oil. And then listen to what Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said. He says, as POTUS has made clear, the United States Navy will continue the blockade of Iranian ports. In a matter of days, Karg Island storage will be full and the fragile Iranian oil wells will be shut in. Constraining Iran's maritime trade directly targets the regime's primary revenue lifelines. The U.S. Treasury will continue to apply maximum pressure through economic fury to systematically degrade Tehran's ability to generate, move, and repatriate funds. Any person or vessel facilitating these flows through covert trade and finance risks exposure to U.S. sanctions. We continue to freeze the funds stolen by the corrupt leadership on behalf of the people of Iran. Now, this is serious because even the Treasury Secretary is coming out saying that all of this money, all of the flow of these funds, it's being frozen and it's systematically being targeted. And with both the physical sense, meaning with the U.S. Navy blockading the goods and transport of goods, and then digitally, financially, from an online perspective, this is what's happening. This is absolutely crazy. And remember, this is one of the first times we're seeing a overt action being taken and stated with regards to finances being hampered. And this is, again, as I've been talking about, a deep state, a cabal operation, a whitehead operation that is systematically cutting off this proxy army that they have been using for a long time. So this is literally big stuff. And then just the other day, this is literally breaking. The DOJ is charging the Southern Poverty Law Center, the SPLC, with wire fraud, false statements, and conspiracy to commit money laundering. Listen to what FBI Director Kash Patel has to say.
What we're here today is to announce what the general just told you. The Southern Poverty Law Center, in a massive, sweeping indictment, has been charged with allegations of fraud and using the banking system to perpetrate that fraud. I just want to talk about a couple of brief things here. The Southern Poverty Law Center themselves advertise to raise money to dismantle violent extremist groups for a period of at least a decade. They use their donor network to raise money to purportedly dismantle violent extremist groups. However, the SPLC, the Southern Poverty Law Center, used the money they raised from their donor network to actually pay the leadership of these very groups. I just want to say that again. They used the fraudulently raised money by lying to their donor network, thousands of Americans, to go ahead and actually pay the leadership of these supposed violent extremist groups. The groups, as the general laid out, include the Ku Klux Klan, the United Klans of America, Unite to Right, National Alliance, the National Socialist Movement, the Aryan Nation Motorcycle Club, and the National Socialist Party of America, and also the American front. In at least one of these matters, our investigation revealed that funds were used to facilitate the commission of further state and federal offenses, totaling over $3 million. Furthermore, our investigation revealed that the Southern Poverty Law Center, on top of perpetuating this widespread, decade-long, multi-million-dollar fraud, conducted more criminal activity. They attempted to hide their criminal activity from our financial banking network. They set up shell companies and entities around America so that the financial institutions that we rely on as everyday Americans were deceived in believing that money was not coming from the Southern Poverty Law Center in the perpetration of this scheme and fraud, but rather fictitious entities they stood up to perpetuate this ongoing fraud. This is a serious and egregious violation of a group that purported to dismantle violent extremist groups, but in turn actually only fueled the hatred. This is an important case brought by President Trump's administration. We're thankful to the president for his leadership and funding of not just the FBI and DOJ, but his commitment to go out there and wipe out fraud and conspiracy and waste and abuse wherever it occurs, including the Southern Poverty Law Center. Even though this money was made to appear to be coming from legitimate people and legitimate entities, we at the FBI, with our great partners at the Department of Justice and in the state of Alabama, were able to comb through a decade worth of material, a scheme that took a decade to build, so that we were able to follow the money, because money never lies, and they got caught. As the Attorney General said, these charges are varying, they are widespread and wide-ranging, and this investigation is very much ongoing. Today, we're here to announce the charges of the Southern Poverty Law Center, and this investigation and the individuals who are responsible will be brought to justice. Thank you, General.
And it's not in this clip here, but the acting Attorney General Todd Blanche also said that the SPLC is manufacturing racism to justify its existence. Using donor money to allegedly profit off Klansmen cannot go unchecked. Now, the SPLC is a huge nonprofit organization, and they've had their hands in so many different things. And something you have to understand about a lot of nonprofits is that, yes, in theory, from a utopian sort of perspective, it is good to kind of fight for some things, but it's also perpetuating this vicious cycle of whether it's racism, whether it's some other thing that's being promoted, but at the expense of not really fighting it, but seeding it harder into the brain and into the culture of certain people groups, especially if it is in regards to racism or sexism or any of the sort of elementary, and I don't say it in a bad way, but elementary level type of human social things, constructs that is allowing infighting, disputes and divide and all of that stuff that's happening. And from a Christian perspective, if you're a believer, you know that these are principalities that are overseeing certain geography. So a certain area could have more racial or violent tendencies, and these are principalities that are being overrun in that area. And so this is being shown as something good to fight, but then behind it is perpetuating a systematic sort of thing that's happening. And so I want to look at a couple of cue drops. Because what did Kash Patel just say? Follow the money. And even in the first 10, 20 posts, there's so many posts that says, follow the money. It's the key. And Q has been telling us recently, where has all this money gone? Here, why did Soros donate all his money recently? Why would he place all his funds in an RC? Post 10, remember the FBI and MI having an open investigation into the Clinton Foundation. Why did Comey drop this? Who was the FBI director during the Haiti crisis? How many kids disappeared? How much money sent to Clinton Foundation under disguise of hurricane relief went to Hillary? What countries donated big money to CF and why? How much was owed by accepting? And then post 9, which is most relevant in some sense to what the SPLC and what this allegation is with all of the racial sort of funding, is projection. This is post 9, projection. These can't lose control over the black population. At some point, the Great Awakening will occur whereby these false local/national black leaders are corrupt and paid off to help keep the black population poor and in need. These Democrats formed the Confederate States against freeing slaves. Democrats formed the KKK. HRC's mentor is who? Meaning Hillary Rodham Clinton. What happens if the truth about Haiti is released? Do D's lose majority of the vote? through the looking glass. They rely on the MSM, mainstream media, to keep the narrative going, but tech is entrenching on their controls. They missed this in 2016 and desperately attempting to censor now due to CIA cash infusions. This will fail. And there's so many other posts talking about slush funds. This is post 489, slush funds everywhere. Post 299, slush funds, and then 133, talking more about these slush funds. And I'm saying all this because it's not coincidental that both domestically talking about this fraud and this investigation with money, and then cutting off the funding in Iran with some of the $500 million a day type stuff, all of this is choking off and constricting the movement of money towards the deep state and all of these underlying things, that it's keeping the normie, the regular person, in check, meaning from their control perspective. And so all of this is being released. And then eventually the Great Awakening, the principalities of this area, hopefully by prayer and through the help of the Lord, is being released such that we can see more freedom, we can see more normality, and we can see something that has been in this perpetual state of preconceived social constructs that are keeping people tied down for a long time in the name of doing something good. But really, it's being harmful because it's being pushed top down, paying off, like Q-9 says, on certain leaders. And again, this is not racism in that sense. It's people that are trying to manipulate this sort of good movement, doing it in a bad way. And it looks like it's good stuff, but it's continually this cycle, this vicious cycle that's happening, keeping people poor, keeping people in a state of division, keeping people hating on each other and not looking towards bigger things, meaning who's really in control. It's this pyramid. People are not looking up and seeing what's going on at a policy level, at a big picture level, but really they're just infighting, left versus right, D's versus R, white versus black, many other racial or other sexist type stuff, male versus female. All these things are happening for a reason. And so we're seeing this happen from a financial perspective where Trump, the White Hats, these guys, the Treasury Secretary, these guys are cutting off certain things. And so let's see what happens as things move on. But this is big news because, again, we're moving towards the next phase of this white hat operation. And I can't wait to see what comes of it, because there's exposure and there's the general population accepting it and really digesting the information. But then more importantly, the release, the freedom of what comes after this. So I want to know what you guys think down in the comments below. And also, if you guys want to continue to support me, we're a little short of our financial goal. You guys know that I'm listener supported, and I also do a lot of ministry, other stuff behind the scenes. Would love it if you guys can continue to help me reach my goal. The link is down below in the description, givesendgo.com/chrisyoonyt. I also have PayPal, Zelle, and Venmo. So love you guys. More to come. Talk to you guys very soon.